Quick question. What's the largest organ in your body? If you said the liver or the brain, you're not alone, but you're also not right. It's something you're touching right now, something most people never think of as an organ at all. That's the kind of surprise waiting in almost every one of these nine organs. Mundane sounding parts of your body that turn out to be doing something genuinely remarkable the moment you actually look closely. Let's go through what they actually do and just how strange the human body really is under the surface. The skin is, in fact, the largest organ in the human body, covering roughly 2 square meters and weighing somewhere around 8 or 9 pounds in an adult. More than the liver, more than the brain. It's built from three distinct layers, and it completely replaces itself roughly every few weeks, constantly shedding old cells as new ones form beneath. Here's a strange one. A significant portion of the dust in your home is actually made up of your own shed skin cells. Beyond just being a barrier, skin produces vitamin D when exposed to sunlight, hosts its own living microbiome of bacteria, and varies dramatically in thickness across your body, from paper thin eyelids to the much tougher skin on your heels. It's also densely packed with nerve endings for touch, temperature, and pain, which is part of why it's sometimes described less as a simple covering and more as a full sensory organ in its own right. The heart is roughly the size of your own closed fist, and it does not stop. It beats about 100,000 times a day, pumping something like 2,000 gallons of blood through your body over that same 24 hours. It has its own internal electrical system, which is actually why a heart can, under very specific conditions, keep beating for a short time, even when disconnected from the rest of the body. English physician William Harvey first correctly described how blood circulates through the body back in 1628, and it took until 1967 for the first human heart transplant to succeed, a genuine turning point in modern medicine, performed by South African surgeon Christian Barnard. Since then, heart surgery and transplantation have advanced enormously, but the basic organ itself hasn't changed at all. It's essentially the same remarkably efficient pump that's been keeping animals alive for hundreds of millions of years of evolution. The lungs aren't quite as symmetrical as most people assume. The left lung is actually smaller than the right, simply to make room for the heart. Inside them are hundreds of millions of microscopic air sacs called alveoli, creating a total surface area for gas exchange that comes close to an entire tennis court, folded up inside your chest. Here's the part that surprises people. The lungs themselves contain no muscles at all. All of the actual work of breathing is done by your diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle beneath them that contracts and relaxes roughly 20,000 times every single day. Tiny hair-like structures called cilia also line your airways, constantly sweeping dust and debris upward and out, a built-in cleaning system running continuously, whether or not you're ever consciously aware it's happening. The brain uses about 20% of your body's total energy, despite making up only about 2% of your body weight. For decades, textbooks confidently stated it contains about 100 billion neurons. But in 2009, neuroscientist Susanna Herculano Hausel developed a new counting method and found the real number is closer to 86 billion. Even stranger, roughly 80% of those neurons live in the cerebellum, a structure most people have barely heard of, tucked at the back of the brain and mostly associated with balance and movement, not the wrinkled cerebral cortex most popular science focuses on. And despite controlling how your entire body feels pain, the brain itself has no pain receptors at all, which is exactly why some brain surgeries can be performed on fully conscious patients, using only local anesthesia for the scalp and skull. The liver is the largest internal organ in the body and performs more than 500 distinct functions, from filtering toxins out of your blood to storing energy and producing the bile your body needs to digest fat. Its most remarkable trait, though, is regeneration. The liver can regrow to its full size even after losing as much as 75% of its tissue, making it the only internal organ in the human body capable of this kind of self repair. That single property is what makes living donor liver transplants possible at all. A surgeon can remove a portion of a healthy donor's liver, and within a matter of weeks, both the donated piece and the remaining original tissue will grow back toward a full functional size. The stomach is a stretchy, muscular pouch that holds acidic fluid strong enough to break down metal over time, and yet it doesn't digest itself thanks to a protective layer of mucus lining its walls, constantly renewed as the stomach's own lining replaces itself every few days. That familiar growling sound your stomach makes isn't necessarily about hunger at all. It's mostly just the ordinary movement of muscle contractions and gas working their way through an empty digestive tract, a process with the wonderfully specific medical name borborygmi. The pancreas quietly does two completely different jobs at once, producing digestive enzymes that help break down food, and through tiny hormone producing clusters called the islets of Langerhans, first identified in 1869, regulating blood sugar through insulin. Insulin itself wasn't discovered until 1921 by researchers Frederick Banting and Charles Best. And before that breakthrough, a diagnosis of diabetes was often a death sentence within a fairly short period of time. It remains one of the most significant medical discoveries of the 20th century, all tied to an organ only about 6 inches long, a striking reminder of how something so small and rarely discussed can single handedly determine whether millions of people live or die. The kidneys, despite being relatively small, filter an enormous amount of fluid, somewhere around 180 liters every single day, through roughly a million microscopic filtering units called nephrons in each kidney. Beyond producing urine, they also help regulate blood pressure and even release a hormone that tells your body to produce more red blood cells. And in case you're wondering, you can live a completely normal, healthy life with just one functioning kidney, which is exactly why living kidney donation is possible and why it's become one of the most common and successful types of organ transplant performed today. And finally, the intestines, genuinely one of the most underrated systems in the entire body. The small intestine alone stretches roughly 20 feet long, and thanks to millions of tiny finger like projections called villi, its total absorptive surface area rivals that of a tennis court, all coiled up inside your abdomen. It's also home to trillions of bacteria that make up your gut microbiome, and it contains such an extensive independent nervous system that scientists sometimes call it the body's second brain, one that can actually function and coordinate certain processes even without direct signals from the brain in your head, which is part of why gut health has increasingly become linked in ongoing research to mood and mental well being, not just digestion. 9 organs, and honestly,